So finally, it has come to this. The playoff for the US Chess Championship, both for the men and for the women. For the men, Kamsky, Lenderman and Akobian each tied for first with 7 out of 11, 7-11.
This program is sponsored by 7-Eleven, your store at the corner of or whatever.
Yeah, I hadn't figured that one out. But, yep, 7 out of 11. And, like we mentioned at the end of the last video, Kamsky had the best score between them in this mini tournament here. So he gets a bye, and Akobian and Lenderman play a Armageddon game for the right to play Kamsky in a 2-game rapid match. Same for the women. Krush had the best score, so Zatonskih and Abrahamyan play a match for who gets to meet Krush. So, moving on to the games. And the way the Armageddon game works is, okay, one guy gets white, the other one gets black. The one with the black pieces only needs to make a draw to win. So it gets draw odds. But what happens is, how do we decide who gets black? Well, the players actually bid for it. The white player starts with 45 minutes, but the two players make a secret bid for what time they are willing to accept with the black pieces, and the one with the lower bid will get the black pieces with the time that he bid. So they played actually the English opening, and here you see the time adjusted. So Akobian bid just around the 30-minute mark, and he had the lower bid, so he got the black pieces. So the English opening here, and what Akobian is employing here is called the Karpov system. Put the bishop on c5. Quite a solid system for black, where yeah, he usually makes space for this bishop with a6, you know, not to get the bishop trapped. He played d6, get the bishop out, and, you know, somewhat comfortable development, maybe a slight space disadvantage, but a solid position. And meanwhile, white went for this e3 and knight g2, e2. In the recent 3-volume work on the English, Michal Marin actually went with knight f3 in this line, and in most of the lines, but okay. E3 and knight e2 has been associated with the English for a long time. b4, bishop back, bishop to b2. And h6, black played to, well, anticipate d4 and bishop g5, but now maybe the move's a little bit redundant, but on the other hand, after he plays bishop f5, we have a safe square for the bishop here as well. And here comes the move rook b8. Looks somewhat mysterious, but the point of this move will be revealed in a few moves. So d4, pawn takes, bishop f5. Developing this bishop to a nice diagonal and trying to get control over this e4 square. And after c5, queen d7, knight to f4. Now we see the point behind rook b8. We can move this. Well, okay, one more move, and then knight to e7. Now we can move this knight safely because the pawn on b7 is covered by the rook. And this is all part of a regrouping plan to reroute this bishop. Let's see a few more moves. Rook e1, c6. And now we're ready to move this rook, move this knight maybe, and then the bishop will re-emerge on this diagonal. And yeah, maybe we play d5 as well, and black has... That seems like a solid position. Queen b3 was played. Yeah, black might think about d5 here, but he went knight g6. Knight takes, bishop takes. Rook takes, we're ready to play here. And probably we're ready to play d5 as well with good control of this square. And in that pawn structure, the only real weakness might be even the d4 pawn. Because it will take white a good while to attack this, and we can't put a rook on b1, so maybe to avoid this structure, white played d5. But now pawn takes c5. And if we take back, we lose a pawn, so it takes on c6 first. And knight a4. Again, if we take on c5, we just lost a pawn, so this looks like a pawn sacrifice by white here, knight a4. Now black played c4. Should have played c takes b4, which has the same ideas to open this diagonal, and forces white's hand a little bit more, because after the move played c4, white might play queen c3, which covers the important entry square on d2, but took on c4. And this allowed bishop takes on f2. Now, what to do? Going king h1 is, yeah, almost admitting defeat, and black has a number of ways to play from here. Maybe knight e4, bishop e4, bishop will retreat at some point, knight f2 might come with check. Doesn't look good for white. There's also the option of just keeping the pawn, maybe rook e6. And of course we keep the pawn because if takes, there's bishop e4. Well, this is even stronger because it's mate. So Lenderman elected to take the bishop, but then queen to check, king back, and the very effective move. Perhaps Lenderman calculated queen e3 check, he calculated rook e1, but rook e2 is the most effective move here. Attacking this, and not easy to deal with this. Lenderman with bishop takes c6, but a strong move knight e4 blocks the bishop from influencing this diagonal and defense. Bishop d4, and now rook g2 check. And here Akobian started to repeat the moves, and probably strictly speaking he should have, because the game is unrated because of time difference and the draw. So a draw gets him to the final of the US Chess Championship, but he actually declined the draw and decided to go for mate here. Okay, he's good enough to do that, but I mean, even if there's a 99.9% chance of you being right, there's still, you know, a tiny bit of chance you're wrong. But if you take the draw immediately, there's no chance of going wrong. So statistically speaking, the wrong decision, but okay. He made it in two moves here, rook h1 check, and knight takes d3. So this means that Akobian is on to the final. Let's see what happened on the women's side of things. Same procedure. They had a bid, and actually Zatonskih bid 45 minutes, which means that she really wanted white. Abrahamyan bid, you'll see it at the next move, 29 minutes, I think 29:45 actually. So she got the black pieces in 29:45. And guess what opening? Yep, you got it, the nimzo-indian. The nimzo-indian thematic tournament continues, and this time around we have this e4 line, a really sharp line. White just wants to take over the center immediately, and if black does nothing, he's going to get trapped. So he needs to take active measures, and d5 is the most common move. When e5 follows, knight e4, pawn to a3, and we have to take on c3. Can't retreat because knight takes e4, retains, well, wins a pawn and retains the big center. So takes, pawn takes, and c5. Okay, really attacking the white center. Black has castle, so she needs to take active measures immediately because white has the bishop pair and the strong center, so we need to find some counterplay. Queen a5, knight e2, protect this pawn. No, pawn takes d4, takes on d5 and f3. And here Abrahamyan went knight c5. I believe knight takes c3 is the most common move when white can play. I think the theory is knight takes d4. And something like this, a very unbalanced situation. Yeah, I haven't checked if white can do something like this, but I know knight takes d4 is the most common move in praxis, but Abrahamyan went with knight c5. Pawn on h7 was captured. White castled. The black took on c3. So okay. Pawns are actually equal here. And after bishop e6, the magnificent move here, knight takes d5. Winning a pawn, but losing a piece if black takes, which he did. But the point is that now the queen can access this f5 square, which she couldn't before. And she just wants to go to h5 or h3 and checkmate the black king, which is in a world of hurt here on the h5. So what happened? Queen p6. She wants to move this knight with tempo. And here white, I think, was close to winning with rook b1, which he didn't do. The main point here is, okay, this square can't be accessed by the queen, and any light square is dangerous to go to, because once we go here, we threaten the discovery, winning the queen. So we have to spend another move. And if we go to another square, there's no more discovery, and this becomes extremely dangerous for black. Instead, queen h3 was played, but now knight e6, check, so king has to move, rook d8. And now the bishop discoveries aren't dangerous. The bishop was just protected here with the rook. There's no mate, the knight covers bishop g5, so this means that the king will be able to run to e7 in case of something like this, check, check, check. Now there's no bishop here, queen is intact, this is protected, everything under control. So white tried a4, and this has some ideas of bishop a3 in some lines. For instance, now, yeah, we could have the same line, but then after bishop moves, king g8, queen h7, king f8, check, king e8. Now the queen will, which is now on h7, will check on g8, and then take on f7. So that's what white is trying, but knight f8. And this means that after the bishop moves, which it did, with check, there's no more queen h7 because of the knight here. Black seems to be holding things together. Rook b1 was played, queen a6, keeping the queen on the 6th rank. And this is important because if the bishop moves to this diagonal, we have queen h6 as an important resource, blocking in the h file. Bishop g5, rook b1, bishop e6, and here she went all in with bishop f6. Abrahamyan took on f5, queen takes f5. And now queen e6 before we play knight g6, blocking this. So black is off a pawn and seems to have everything under control. Queen a2, rook to d1. And now she simply took the piece. And turns out not much white can do here. She took back with a pawn, but this allows queen e2. I think actually queen f2 was stronger, threatening rook e1. But okay, we also have the threat of queen e1 here. h4 making note for the king. But now she found queen f2, and actually she had to find queen f2 here. And queen f2 and maybe knight e7. Yeah, I think there were only two moves here, and she found queen f2. And now white can't really do anything. I mean, rook d4, we can't allow white to take here, black to take here with check. Here Abrahamyan played knight d7 instantly, which is, yeah, a nice move given that she only needs a draw, because if we take, we're gonna get a check here. We can perhaps take this, and then simply take here. White has to take. White is down a piece, he will never win here. The best white can hope for is a draw, and that's absolutely fine with black. So yeah, Anna's hands are kind of tight here. She has to go all in again, h5, but now rook e1 check. And now queen g1 and rook takes d1. And this is too much material. And after h takes g6. Tatsiev had a similar situation as Akobian had before, in that she can take the perpetual. And in fact she did. And the main problem for white is that any king move to the 4th rank, you know, wherever it may be, means that rook takes d4 is coming with check. and that's just too much. So Zatonskih had to resign to the fate that Perpetual was the end of the game here, and that means that Abrahamyan moves on to the championship match. Okay, but moving on to the championship matches, we'll start with the women actually. So it's Krush against Abrahamyan. And in the first game, Irina Krush was white, and they played, you guessed it, the nimzo-indian. This time the E3 Rubinstein variation. And yeah, common continuation here. Knight C6. White took on D5 and on C5. Not completely familiar here, but I guess black should take on C5 with the bishop, but she went bishop G4. And this allowed knight to A4. Attacking the pawn, and this puts perhaps black in a bit of a pickle, because B7, now A3. Now you kind of have to take this pawn, and then you give up the bishop pair. White has a really comfortable position. She might play B4. But okay, I mean, black is not lost. Pawns are equal. We can imagine B4, this, or something like this. But okay, black can think about something like this, and we have sort of a Nimzovich type of position, 2 knights against 2 bishops. But black isn't down anything, and you can fight from here. So, but okay, white's gonna have the bishop pair and some advantage. And the thing with Tatiev, she doesn't like to defend. She's an attacking player, so she went bishop A5. This allows B4, and now white just secured this pawn, and she's on a pawn. So black really has to do something here on the king side with her pieces, and let's see how she did with that. Rook D8. She brought her rooks to active center files. On to B5. Yeah, this knight doesn't make a huge impression, but let's see what happens. Bishop D4. Things look under control for white still. Knight B2. Yeah, I thought she wanted to prove this knight, but then it stayed there for a while. Now Queen H6. Of course, the threat now is bishop takes F3 and take on H2, so G3. But this weakens the structure a little bit. Weakens the structure a little bit. Rook E6. So she's starting to bring her heavy pieces into attack, and yeah, probably justifying her earlier decision. But you know, since it's always more difficult to be the one defending in a shorter time control game. So bishop H3. And this actually, what's the next move? Bishop F1. Yeah. Let's say white plays something like this. Can we? Well, let's actually pick a worse move like this. Intentionally. Because we might have this. I'm not sure. It looks like it because jack. Yeah. King must go to the corner. Yeah, okay. We can maybe survive, but I think it's winning for black. The point is, of course, if we go straight to the corner, now we have checkmate. And if this one, maybe we have mating ideas here. The threat is here and mate, and it's not so easy to get rid of this bishop, so this might be mate this. Also this bishop takes H2, which turns mate immediately, might be stronger even. So that's the cheeky threat, but bishop F1 avoids this funny business. But you can see that Tatiev is a tricky player. So okay, we got rid of this queen takes H4 funny business, but now what to do? Okay, the knight had to go to F5. If you go here, queen here, rook here, boom shakalaka, can't do anything. So knight F5, queen H3, and F3. And this entails that white is sacrificing her pawn back, because takes, queen takes. Black has won the pawn back. But in the process, black has weakened this diagonal terribly, and this knight is a bit out of play. And this guy isn't really that great right now. So if white, okay, there's a threat here, and after a subsequent 93 at some point, then white's minor pieces are much better than these two. So queen back here, we might play knight d3 here, because if takes, then this is hanging. So this is, okay, rook d1. Why rook d1? Maybe knight d3. Okay, rook e8, a4, trying to improve her pawn structure on the queen side. Knight d3 finally, you didn't have to prepare this move, but okay. Now it comes, rook e4, c6, and this you can't take, because again, this is hanging with mate. So rook c8, knight to b4, yeah, attacking a pawn, and now thinking about this pawn. And I think the black position looks a bit too difficult to defend. White wins a pawn here, but gives it right back, but wins it right back. So white is off a pawn here. She was hitting the rook, so it had to move. Knight f6, and black doesn't have time to take here. Takes, it's mate, right? So bishop e5, rook d7, and it's looking dangerous for black. Bishop takes, and now queen takes. Eventually they had to trade the queens. Queen f3. Black has to take, because otherwise there are too many attackers on the f7 square. But still, too many attackers on the f7 square. Rook takes c6. She took here. g8. And white is only up a pawn. Well, make it 2 pawns. So the question is, could black have gone for the rook ending here? Like rook takes f2. I'm not sure. They didn't have much time left, but maybe there was more of a throwing chance by taking on f2. But she gave up the a7 pawn, just trying to keep things active, but I think there were more chances in going for the single rook ending a pawn down. I mean, now she's 3 pawns down. And okay, she had some tricks. I guess she wanted to play for tricks, but Krush avoided all the tricks. Kept 2 pawns as an advantage. She's stronger king over here. Yeah, important that she's not getting lawnmower mated because of this. So takes on g4, but she made the 8 pawn count here. Rook b8, rook b7, and takes, and the pawn is gonna roll. King b8 is coming. It's coming. Followed by queening, and finally Tatev had to resign. So Krush takes a commanding lead here in the match. It's 25 minutes for the game, and then an increment, I think 10 seconds rather than 5, but now Tatev has to win with the white pieces, and we have the Sicilian Kalashnikov. That's e5 without knight f6 and knight c3. And this means that because there's no knight on f6, we can play bishop e7 to g5 and exchange these black squared bishops, trying to highlight some weaknesses in white's camp. And this they also played in the standard part of the tournament. I'm not sure if it was exactly this move order, but they played the Kalashnikov also. So bishop g5 comes finally, takes the bishop. And well, actually in this game, well, first we should mention that the Kalashnikov oftentimes looks a lot like a structure you might get from a Sveshnikov. But okay, in this game we had some simplification. Knight takes d5, bishop takes h7, winning the pawn back because now we take the piece. And white looks slightly better here. I mean, black has 3 pawn islands against 2. White has some attacking ideas here. Rook h4, queen h5. More activity, but black should be able to defend. King g8, avoiding rook h4 and queen h5. Now there's pressure on this. King c5 offering a trade that white can't really go for, so f6. Relieves the pressure here. And white seems to have like a slight plus, but not enough somehow. And she won a pawn here, but it turns out black wins one right back. Because we can't protect this. If we protect it, check. Must take, but now there's perpetual. There's no way out of this. Okay, that's a mouse slip, but boom. Chagalaga. I can't even make an error here. So back and forth, nothing to be done. Perpetual. So she had to give up this c3 pawn. Queen f5 check, king g8. And why didn't she take on b5, one might ask? Well, if she takes on b5, rook takes h3, draws immediately, because if you take it perpetual, and since Krush won the first game, that wins the match for her. There's no way out of it like this. We could maybe play rook h1, queen to e1 also seems sufficient. If queen f1, well, if rook f1, there's queen e3 back. So to get out of the perpetual, we have to play here. But then we just take, and there's no way to win this. Maybe the best chance still, because, yeah, I mean, maybe white should have gone for that, because instead she ended up giving away her b4 pawn. And yeah, I mean, there is no check here. You check here, there's queen interposing diagonal, so it's like nothing further. And rook d4, okay, she wants to swing the rook over or something, but queen 1 check. Black's up a pawn, nothing to be done. And they agree to a draw here. I mean, only black can win, but a draw was enough for the result here for Krush. So Tatiev didn't really do anything. So this means that Irina Krush retains her title, the 6th title for her. So all that remains is to see what happened on the men's side. And there, Akobian started with the white pieces. We had the Slav with a6, and Kamsky is really experienced in these Slavs with a6. He often plays it with g6. Here he took on c4, which makes sense since white played g3. And g6, giving back this pawn here, but now bishop e6. And sort of initiating some exchanges here. And white can't play e4, which is important because he loses a pawn here. So he has to give up the bishop here. And more importantly, the fiancé of bishop, which weakens his structure. And okay, black could potentially take with the queen here, which forces white to sacrifice a pawn. But the thing is that this is a dangerous pawn because there are a lot of moves here, easy moves for white in a rapid game. And Kamsky didn't want to defend this, so he went for a more solid route with c takes d5. And this more or less indicates that he's quite happy with a draw with the black pieces in this game. Queen b5, another indicator. He wants to go for the endgame. That's what he does. King d7. He's ready to contest the c-file. He's got the better bishop if anything. So no problems for black here whatsoever. And c8 was played. And this game was a bit of a snooze fest actually. And white can't trap the rook because the f2 pawn hangs. So eventually white has to play rook d2. And yeah, theoretically maybe even black is better because all these pawns are on black squares. But on the other hand, we can't get the bishop around to these pawns either. There's no real entry for the rooks, so actually it's very drawish, and in the end we had all the white pawns on black squares and the full blockade of b4, a4. Nothing to play for, and after e5 and eventually f5, they both resigned themselves to the fact that this game wasn't drawn. Fair enough, but this means that Kamsky got the white pieces in the second game of the match. And now he needs to win to become champion. Same for Akobian, but Kamsky doesn't lose often with white. But let's see what happens. D4, D5. And another London by Kamsky, which he has been playing a lot in this tournament, and well, to be honest, in his career. E3, bishop to F5, knight F3. Here I like the approach with C4 actually. Trying to play the ending here, hoping for something like this, which I think is a nice ending for white, but Kamsky went with bishop E2, slightly more restrained, bishop back to G3. And once again, this doesn't look like much for white, but again, I don't have to remind you, do I? Do I? This is Kamsky for you. This is what it does. So here, just a slight plus for white. I mean, nothing serious. He wants to play b4, minority attack. Here comes b4, queen e7, pinning the pawn, so queen b2. Ready for this. Trying to make some weaknesses. And here, black decides to go with e5, but with d1. Takes on d4, but now white gets the d file under control. And he's really solid, no threat to the king. So the d file under control, and also now with d6 square. Nice juicy square for his knight. And it turns out that white can afford to take on b7 here. That's what it did. What it did, because queen a7, rook b4. This also unpins the knight, because now we can move the knight next move. That's what he did, move the knight, we won a pawn. And okay, black's chances perhaps that if we exchange all of them pawns, then 4 against 3 might be difficult to win here on the king side. But as it turned out, maybe Akobian overlooked white's threat here. He played bishop e6, but now simply pause your video and come back. Pause your freaking video, do it now. Okay, you unpaused and knight takes g7. Yeah, and if you take it, queen g5 check, no way to protect this knight. So now white is up 2 pawns, and there's no refugee in this move. Okay, if nothing else, we can play here and we'll take on a6. Black tried king g8, but queen g5 check. Bishop here, taking this pawn. Actually, no good way to protect it, so white got it, and now remarkably he's up 3 pawns. Then we had a quick ending here. The rook is attacked. Black wanted refugee in the rook ending, but okay. Even that is winning up 3 pawns, but rook d8 is immediately winning. Because if you don't take, we take the rook, and if you take, we take your queen. Take your queen! And that means that, oh, Akobian offered his hand, his resignation, and his congratulations to the defending US chess champion Kamsky. So we have repeat champions Kamsky and Krush. And that concludes the 2014 US Chess Championship in my coverage. So thank you for watching. I owe you a high five if I see you and you watched all the videos. And blah blah blah. See you later. Bye bye.